ESPN's Trevor Matich for another Matich Monday, former national champion and college football insider. Trevor, I want to spend the majority of this interview talking about this whole Big 12 chaos theory that we've set up in the college football playoff, but I do want to ask you initially, what was your reaction to the Miami Beach Bowl matchup of Memphis and BYU?
I like it. It's a good matchup, and it's a good reward for Memphis. I mean, they haven't won a conference championship since the 1960s. Now they're co-champs. It's an excellent matchup for BYU, and it'll be a tough win for BYU if they're able to pull it off. I mean, this is very much a defensive-minded team, very solid on defense, balanced on offense. They'll throw a couple of running backs at you. One of them weighs about 210 pounds. The other one's 250 pounds. And so this is a fundamentally sound team that will require you to be disciplined to have a chance to beat them. It'll be a fun game.
Yeah, won 6 games in a row, finished 9-3. In my opinion, they're the best team in the American Athletic Conference. Amazingly, that has all taken a backseat to what happened at a little after noon Eastern time yesterday with the announcement of the college football playoff and the 4 teams in. Ohio State gets in. TCU and Baylor and the Big 12 are snubbed and left out. How much does that really help BYU's potential Power 5 inclusion?
Well, I think it helps a lot because when you look at what the Big 12 is going through right now, they are really upset. You've got the commissioner trying to backtrack and make excuses for the fact that they refused to name the one true champion that they said all season they were going to have, that made their system of not having a playoff game but playing everybody in the league superior to all the other conferences. So he's trying to moonwalk that one. You've got the conference champion, Baylor, or co-champion, Coach Art Briles complaining that the Big 12 commissioner, or at least his office, did not promote one true champion hard enough so that the committee would have a reason to give them better consideration. This is in Briles' opinion. All these things happening mean there's a lot of chaos there. And when there's chaos, there's emotion. And when there's emotion, there's catalysts for change.
Right, right. Trevor, if the Big 12 does decide to expand, which teams are most attractive to them?
Well, BYU is obviously attractive to them because it's a national program. There's a lot of prestige in BYU's football program, and the rest of the programs as well. I mean, BYU doesn't just come in with a football team. It comes in with a full athletic program that's competitive nationally. But football is king, and because BYU is a national program, there'll be eyeballs from coast to coast on every single Big 12 game that features BYU. That's something they need to think about because that's important. But another thing that they can think about doesn't include BYU. I mean, they could go the other direction, and they could get eyeballs on their conference by going to, say, the University of Cincinnati, massive city with outstanding high school football. And if they bring the Bearcats into the conference, they will have, half the teams will be physically in the city of Cincinnati every year on road trips. You've got Central Florida and South Florida, which would put the Big 12 into the recruiting hotbed of the Southeast. Yep. And they could take both of those teams. Forget Cincinnati. They could just pick those Florida teams and really concentrate on being in the state of Florida often every year. Either one of those two options would leave BYU out of the cold from a standpoint of a Big 12 if it only expanded to 12 teams. And something tells me that if they are forced to expand in order to have a conference championship game, that might not be the case. But if they are, then I don't think they'll go past 12 teams because I really think the Big 12 likes dividing their money amongst as few teams as possible. Yep. They had, per team, more money than the SEC divided this year because the SEC has 14 teams and the Big 10 only splits it, or Big 12 only splits it 10 ways.
Wow.
The great debate is whether or not the Big 12 can get that exemption from the NCAA to host a conference champion or to hold a conference championship game with only 10 teams. So I think it really only hinges on whether or not they can get that to go through. Right, Trevor?
Yeah, that's a big one. And I don't think the NCAA will agree to that because I think there will be pushback from the other conferences. I mean, the Pac-12 expanded specifically so that they could get 12 teams, 2 6-team divisions, and therefore qualify to have their own conference championship game.
Right.
And I think the other conferences would not want to give the Big Ten the benefits of a conference championship game, while also the benefits of splitting money only 10 ways. And so I think that the other conferences would pressure the NCAA to make it a level playing field, that if the Big 12 wants to go that route, fine, but they have to take the same path that everybody else took to get there.
Trevor, do you think the committee got it right with these 4 teams?
I do. The first 3, these are the 4 teams that I picked. The first 3, I think, are ones that everybody agrees with. The question really should have been Ohio State, Baylor, or TCU at number 4.
Right.
And you can make a case for Ohio State or Baylor. You can't really make a case for TCU, in my opinion, even though they might be the best of those 3 teams, because one true champion, they lose the head-to-head tiebreaker with Baylor to be the first among equals in terms of the co-champs of the Big 12. So whether it's Ohio State or Baylor, you can make a case for either team. And I think one of the cases you can make for Ohio State over Baylor is that Ohio State's loss came in week 2 when they were having their freshman quarterback start his second game in place of injured senior Heisman candidate Braxton Miller. That was Ohio State's loss. Baylor's loss was at West Virginia when their best quarterback, Bryce Petty, was on the field.
Right.
And so I think there are reasons you could take Ohio State over Baylor that are perfectly reasonable to everybody outside of Waco, Texas.
For me, it's just the 59-0 factor in a championship game. When I saw TCU win 56-3, and I thought, okay, well, maybe they'll let the Horned Frogs in. I don't know if they're going to determine the body of work and the eye test and all that stuff. But when Ohio State won 59-0, for me, that sealed the deal. You just can't ignore that in a conference championship game.
Well, sure, and if you want to look at it from a standpoint of complete team, think of what Ohio State has accomplished. They lose Braxton Miller preseason. Most people wrote them off as a playoff contender because of that. With their backup freshman, they went to number 5 in the nation at the end of the regular season, and that backup freshman, J.T. Barrett, elevated his play to the level of Heisman contender.
Yep.
Well, now they're on their 3rd quarterback because of the injury to Barrett, and he threw 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and completely lit up Wisconsin defense, which is statistically one of the best in the nation. And so I don't know how you can fail to say that Ohio State is a complete team able to overcome more adversity than any other team in the nation this year, and not just a team with a star that carries them forward.
Trevor Matich of ESPN with us on BYU Sports Nation. We're talking about the Big 12 snub, the college football playoff, and how this impacts BYU football moving forward. Trevor, I feel like the best case scenario for BYU was how it played out on Saturday with everything falling how it did, and then the playoff committee opting to leave the Big 12 out. But the Cougars are still kind of a high-maintenance inclusion in that conference because no Sunday play and TV rights and all that stuff. What if BYU were to go as a football only? Do you think that would increase their chances of getting what they want in the college football world?
No, I don't think that makes sense for either party, BYU or the Big 12. And the big reason is that the Big 12 would want BYU basketball. They would want BYU baseball and track and all the other things that BYU brings to the table. I mean, it enhances their prestige and their national competitiveness. And so as a football only, I think you start to get a little weird when you start to split off sports like that. Now, it could happen. It's possible. But because of the Sunday play that you're talking about, you know, with BYU's Olympic sports in the West Coast Conference now, that makes perfect sense there. But, you know, I think the Mountain West and the Western Athletic Conference before that were able to work it through. And I think the Big 12 would be able to as well. I think the Pac-12 would have been less of a fit for BYU just because of the culture. I mean, think about Provo, Utah, and Berkeley, California. You know, you don't have a whole lot of common ground when it comes to that. But Provo and these towns in Texas, there's a lot of common ground. So I think they'd be able to work through Sunday play.
Trevor, I have this prediction that if there's one more shuffle in college football, that teams and conferences are going to start to hit the panic button, and you'll see these mega conferences form. Do you think with the panic right now with the Big 12 and then bringing on a team like BYU, do you think other conferences join in and gather some more teams?
Boy, I hope not. I certainly hope not. Just because all of a sudden, you know, you will have a push towards even more playoffs. I mean, think about this. Look at the NFL. you have two conferences, the National NFC and the American Conference, the AFC. 16 teams in the NFC and AFC. So let's just take the AFC for fun. Those 16 teams have a 3-round playoff just to determine the champion of their conference. Then the winner goes on to the Super Bowl, right? Well, the SEC and the ACC, these are conferences that have 14 teams already. So there's no way in the world they can come close to playing everybody in their conference. There's not enough games in the season. And then you've got a situation where they have one conference championship game. Well, if they expand any more, you'd have to have a multiple-round playoff within conferences. And some people think that's a good idea, but I think that the more college football becomes like the NFL, the greater the danger of losing what makes college football the greatest regular season of all sports. And that's because college football is the least like its professional counterpart of any of the other sports. Basketball has March Madness. College baseball has the College Baseball World Series. But football is different. And so the regular season in college football has every week monumental, epic battles that will shift the balance of power nationally in college football. Compare that to basketball, where you have big, huge matchups between incredibly highly ranked teams, and it's just an exhibition that matters only for seeding in the postseason tournament. Well, the more you expand conferences, the more you're forced to go more towards an NFL model, add more rounds of playoffs, and when you do that, you diminish the regular season.
Trevor, great stuff. We thank you for bringing some solid thought to an otherwise out-of-control Big 12 chaos theory and the college football playoff. Look forward to what happens over the next month for sure.
All right. Thanks, guys.